Welcome to Real World, Real Talk with Dr. D.Z. Cofield. The show represents captivating conversations and insightful information to encourage and inspire you with all you need to become the best you can possibly be. And now, your host for Real World, Real Talk, Dr. D.Z. Cofield.
Welcome to Real World, Real Talk. I'm your host, Dr. D.Z. Cofield, and I want to thank you today for the privilege of your time. Today, we will talk about a subject that is impacting all of us directly and in many instances indirectly. Among other observances in the month of October, one that might have snuck up on you is Depression Awareness Month. Today, we're going to talk to an expert about what depression is, how to identify the kind of depression you have, just overall strategies for you to address mental wellness in your own life and in the lives of those who are close to you. One of the great challenges is as we go into now the fall of the year and we're moving in towards the holidays, many people, typically children, are really, really happy, but many adults are struggling and are suffering and will be for the next 60 to 90 days. The loss of loved ones, first holidays without family members, and the like. So many things are on us. And what are we going to do with the food insecurities in our country and the rising costs of food? We can't do the things that we used to do, right? So many things are going on. We're going to talk about how to manage depression in your life and help you begin to take some steps to getting to a place of health and healing and wholeness in your own mind. Now, just a couple of housekeeping matters. If you want to follow me during the week, you can follow me on IG. That's Instagram at DZ Cofield. You can follow me on Facebook at DZ Cofield, and you can follow me on X, the social media platform formerly known as Twitter, at DZ Cofield. I'm happy to welcome to our virtual studio none other than my compadre, attorney Brandon Cofield. What's up, B?
Not too much. Really excited just to dive into this discussion. There's so many, especially going through years of schooling and just seeing the impact on myself, my friends, families, loved ones. I'm excited to learn more from the expert.
Yeah, I am too. And this brother has been with us in the past and has always blessed us. He is a noted author. Well, let me introduce him and then we'll bring him into the studio. Dr. Napoleon Higgins is a child, adolescent, and adult psychiatrist in Houston, Texas. He is the owner of Bay Point Behavioral Health Services and Southeast Houston Research Group. He received his MD from Missionary Medical College in Nashville, Tennessee, and completed his residency in adult psychiatry and his fellowship in child and adolescent psychiatry at the University of Texas Medical Branch at Galveston, UTMB Galveston, for those of you in the Houston metro area. He is the executive director of the Black Psychiatrists of America, CEO of Global Health Psychiatry, president of the Black Psychiatrists of Greater Houston, and past president of the Caucus of Black Psychiatrists of the American Psychiatric Association. He is the co-author of Bree's Journey to Joy, a story about childhood grief and depression, how Amari learned to love school again, a story about ADHD, Mind Matters, a resource guide to psychiatry for Black communities, and author of Transition to Practice, 21 Things Every Doctor Must Know in Contract Negotiations and the Job Search. He specializes in nutrition and health to improve patients' lives mentally and physically. He emphasizes that good mental and physical health are the key in the practice of psychiatry and medicine. I want you to join me in welcoming to Real World, Real Talk, our friend, our brother from another mother, none other than Dr. Napoleon Higgins. Doc, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, sir. And yourself?
Man, doing really, really well. We have talked several times over the last few years prior to COVID in COVID, just a number of things that people were dealing with. So let's start there. Um, we thought we were in the endemic. We have some things coming back at us now. But what would you say is the general state of the mental health and well-being of those in our country and those in our community?
Well, thank you for having me here today and allowing me to speak on this such an important topic. You know, right now it's been stressful. It has been stressful. If anyone in this country has not felt the stress, then I question their own mental health because things are very different now than they were in 2019. With the start of the pandemic, the issues in with politics, uh, continual issues, with the economy and food insecurities. Bills are up, people are stressed, and it's not letting up. It's not letting up at all. So I would say that it's important that we all be taking an account to our mental health because we're all now dealing with a stressor that is much bigger than the majority of people had, say, in 2018 and 2019.
Yeah. One of the things that I've seen over the years around depression is the failure to really understand the wide impact it can have on our lives. Um, People have not really understood how I think depression or identified that depression can impact you mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. Every aspect of your life can be impacted and affected by depression. Can you just give us a general definition of depression? And then we'll dig a little bit deeper in terms of the different kinds of depression that people can go through. But what's a general layman's definition of depression?
I would say the layman's definition would be having a very low mood or feeling very sad. It is the basic of it, but at the same time, there's what you call clinical depression, right? Where you have what's called major depressive disorder, where it's now impairing just about everything that you do in life. And at that point, you've gone from a sadness or a low mood to actually having now an illness that needs to be treated by a professional. And I think a lot of times we get those confused simply because a lot of people say, I'm feeling sad or I'm feeling depressed. They may come and see me and I say, well, you may need to see a therapist or you may need to do some lifestyle changes. But other times you may see me and I say, well, really, we need to get at this because we possibly need to start medications. And so it's that level of impairment that is the difference between do I need to treat or do I need to treat with medications and see a professional or do I need to work on some other things? So this level of stress has gotten a lot of us down. And, the term is, as the saying goes, pressure can burst a pipe. So I don't care how mentally normal you are. If you put enough burden on an individual, they will start to have issues and start to have problems. So looking at where we are in our stance and then looking at the symptoms that we're having. So the most common symptoms for depression are starting to have disturbances in sleep, having poor interest, not doing the things we would normally do, having a lot of guilty or worthless feelings of blaming ourselves for things that are not necessarily our fault, having low energy, changes in your appetite, increasing weight, losing weight, not wanting to eat or only eating in spurts, difficulty thinking, concentrating, or getting things done that need to be done for the day. And not wanting to move, not wanting to go anywhere, not wanting to do anything, not wanting to engage with people, being very much withdrawn into yourself. And then sadly, having thoughts of giving up or suicidal thinking because depression can be a deadly illness, just like having heart disease or having cancer. This is actually an illness. And I remember once describing what a psychiatrist does versus what, just working on your mental health. And I say those are similar but different things. Mental health versus mental illness. So improving your mental health is something that we all need to do. We all need to decrease our stress, make sure we get adequate sleep, eat well, have good friends, those things. But then there's mental illness that requires treatment by mental health professionals.
So one of the things that I'm always curious about, And it sounds like there is a little bit of a spectrum, but it's one, making sure you're identifying, like you said, as much as like I'm in a bad mood or kind of down, but also being able to recognize that in friends, because so many times you hear people have like stories that are like, man, I would have known, if I would have known what to say, or I thought something was off, but I wasn't quite sure, or maybe we had grown apart. Um, I heard you use that word impairment. And I'm just curious if you can go a little bit further into like, what are some of those signs that like, hey, this is crossed over from like general well-being to like, I'm seeing impairment. It's not just like, oh, they stood me up for lunch. What does that usually look like? How have you seen that manifest itself?
Definitely, definitely. I would say when you start to see that distinct change, especially if it was a good friend, somebody you've been knowing for a while, where there's a distinct change in their ability to engage, in life, where there's a change in their pattern. They're not dressing the same. They're not dressing up. They're not getting, if they always got their hair and nails done, hair and nails not being done. The dress has changed. Not showing up, not wanting to be a part of things that they would normally want to do or be a part of, becoming withdrawn. Not and then when you start to see those big impairments, so far as not being able to go to work, not taking care of your kids, not taking care of yourself. At that point, you're looking at there is an illness now here going on that we need to pay attention to. And I'm so happy we're talking about this because too often we do not talk about the illnesses of the mind. I would say that illnesses that your heart can have. You can have heart inflammation. You can have a heart attack. You can have heart failure. You can break a bone. You can have liver issues. And you can also have brain issues. But when you see brain issues in ourselves and or more so in our friends, there's a distinct change in behavior of being able to get things done. But the problem with having a mental health problem, one, our poor mental health education, but two, when the brain has a problem, well, often the brain cannot tell that it has a problem. It's the brain that's sick itself. And that can cause us to miss a host of things in ourselves that other loved ones can let us know. And that's so important to have a good family, good friends, and people that you can trust who can recognize and see something and love you enough to say, hey, everything okay today? I noticed in the last week or so, you haven't been coming to work or you're not, we have practice and, I noticed your kid hasn't shown. And when they did show, that was the issue of, well, mom just couldn't bring me that day. And I don't know why, so when we see that distinct change, that shift is when we need to really say, hey, is everything okay? Because I've noticed these things and that could be a very hard thing to do. So, I would never walk up to a person and say, I could tell that you're depressed. I don't know if I would say that, but I would tell them I've noticed these things and this is something that you may want to get looked into or get addressed.
Doc, you said something there, and I don't want to go past it. You said that the mind, in essence, can keep the mind from realizing that there's something wrong, or the mind can't identify when there's something wrong with it in many instances. So is it more the symptoms that help us to identify, and is it more necessary to have those good people around you? Can't you say good family and good friends, and I'm assuming part of having good family and good friends are people who actually will tell you the truth in love, but will be honest with you and say, hey, man, it seems to be something wrong. Is that why that's really, really important?
Oh, it's extremely important for your overall mental health, of having people who love you, who look out for your best interest, but also getting that feedback. I tell, if I'm seeing someone here in the office and I've got two chairs behind me here, behind me here, and they ask like, is it okay if I bring my spouse along or my parent along or some parents, even their children along? I always say, great. I always love to hear the other perspective of those who know you, who have a different opinion than them, may have a different opinion. Because one, how you feel the most. All right. So the individual I'm talking to who's in treatment knows how they feel, but the people around you see more so of how you're acting and how you're behaving. All right. Which you may not see it the same way, but could be very much pertinent information to your overall treatment and care. So now with depression, on average, most people with depression can tell that they are depressed at the time because you feel depressed. All right. So people will say, I feel depressed. They don't say I act depressed. They don't say I think depressed. They say I feel depressed, which is a physical hurt and a pain that comes from the illness itself. So most depressed people can recognize it, but we are, I believe, even as Black people, we're masters of ignoring that we've got to push through. I'm talking to a Black mom who has 3 kids, working 2 jobs, at a single home. And she's like, I don't have time to be depressed. You say I'm depressed. I can't.
Right.
I gotta go to work tomorrow. All right. Or the Black male who doesn't recognize depression because they're, substance abuse, or, they're doing a hypersexual behavior, maybe anger or aggression, and it's coming out in other ways. But we need to do a better understanding and a better job of teaching mental health to kids. You can teach people how the brain works, and you can teach people how illness works. Just like you got 5 fingers and 5 toes, and we teach kids these, head and shoulders and 1, 2, 3 and all that. The brain has parts. The brain has neurochemicals, and they do certain things. There are things that you see in humans all across the world when it comes to illness. No, do I ever see people walking backwards, barking like a dog, quoting, speaking in a language they've never heard in certain syllables? No, they don't. There are certain things that are predictable that can happen to people. And people say, well, how do you know all this about me? Well, you have clinical depression, and clinical depression has these particular symptoms.
So I'm sorry, go ahead, Brent.
Well, one of the things I was curious about is, and so I guess humor me a bit. There is separating and distinguishing, if there's a way to do so, kind of disappointment and depression. And I say that in the context of, I know a lot of people, and I'm making this phrase up, at least in my mind, it's kind of like the disappointment zone between like 25 and maybe 35, where you thought your life would be going differently, or you thought you'd be in this position, or you thought this would have happened. And so I know a lot of people, and I don't know if it crosses over into that. And so I think it'll be good for maybe the listening audience. When does it cross over from like just general disappointment? And I heard you talk about a lot of time with the Black community. I mean, there's so many disappointments, whether it's the systemic racism, whether it's our institutional. I mean, there's so many different issues that I think always kind of have us in a situation of feeling disappointed. And so I'm wondering if there is that line, or maybe that's the thing that we chalk it up to disappointment so often, and we don't really address it for what it is. Like it's still a bad thing, even if we're used to it. And it's a natural response for our bodies to be depressed. So I'm just curious if you can talk about that piece. And I know I just kind of threw that out of nowhere. But.
Yeah, definitely. So the thing is that, as we go through age, we go through stages, developmental stages. So essentially from about 13 to about 23, the world is yours. Everything's going to happen for you. And then from 23, 25, you actually go into full adulthood, where it's not a fantasy world. You're out of your family's home. You've got to now pay your own bills, make your own money, create your own career. And there are going to be a lot of headwinds hitting you throughout that entire process of adulting. And so, that next step in life happens, and we start to see those disappointments. The difference between that and clinical depression is impairment. So essentially, I don't like my job. I thought I would be by now, a superintendent of a school district, say, for example. Or I thought I would have gotten into law school. Or I thought I would have been married. Or I thought I would have been, I don't know, have a lot of money, drive a Rolls Royce, and have some kind of rapper lifestyle based upon a career that makes $40,000 a year. Right? So those disappointments hit. The difference between that and depression is going to be, I'm not able to go to work. I'm not dressing myself. I'm not taking care of myself. I'm not, taking a bath, going to work. That is now hit. And then that is where I would call it that clinical depression. But, you have milder symptoms of depression where, just a general dysphoria, not happy about life. Normally that's not going to cause major impairment, even bereavement, losing a parent, sadly, adults losing a child. Those hit but I'm able to get up and go, and I may be down for a day or two where I'm in straight confusion. Maybe I need to take a week or two off work, but generally I'm able to get back at life. I'm taking care of what I need to do. I am paying my bills. Those things are going on. So therefore I'm not impaired. But, I would say it like this, and I'll take it here for my church people. If somebody's at church and they trip in the foyer and break their leg and you see the bone sticking out and blood is coming out, do people start to pray that their bone be fixed and healed? All right.
Yeah.
All right. Now, there may be places where people do that, but you probably go to jail for not getting that person the care and needs that they need. Now, when it comes to depression, that is a medical illness. Something is now broken. They're not able to take care of themselves. They're not going to work. They're not taking care of their family. They got money in the bank, but they're not paying their bills. All right. At that point, you need professional care. Now, for bereavement, all right, I don't think you don't need to necessarily see a psychiatrist for bereavement. That could be done very well inside the church. A lot of bereavement care is done during the funeral, the preparation of the funeral, or unfortunately, for us doing probate and will stuff, a lot of bereavement is falling out of the family and they're grieving and then fighting with one another. But that does not mean that they cannot take care of themselves individually and get the things done that they need to have done. So I would say that depression is something is now broke. Now, too often people don't see what I see. All right. Because everybody puts on a mask to engage light, to engage people, to engage their troubles. We all have on a mask, right? We don't come out just flat out naked, into the world with our emotions. But there's a lot of pain going on that we don't talk about enough in our community where somebody needs that medical intervention. Now, sometimes it's medication. Sometimes that is therapy. Sometimes that's pastoral care. Sometimes people are having some spirituality issues, decision making that they've done in the past, or things that are going inside their home. And all of that is needed for mental health. So it's not all docs, it's not all church, it's not all therapy, but it's a lot of lifestyle, getting to the resources that you need to improve your mental health is what we've got to be about in treating this depression.
Do you see um, the depression that was identified early on? Former First Lady Michelle Obama talked about the entire world experiencing low-grade depression. Think we thought we were climbing out of this with COVID. And then, of course, we've had the economic crisis that's, hit the entire world. And again, now a resurgence of COVID cases, not nearly, of course, as deadly, but still an inconvenience minimally. Do you think we're still functioning at kind of that level of low grade depression, or are we at a better place mentally than we were, say, 2 years ago?
I would say that I would definitely feel as if we're better than where we were in the midst of the pandemic, where people were getting sick and then, really it was like, oh my goodness, am I going to die? Because we literally see people dying. We know people that got sick and passed away. So I would definitely say we're better than the acute issue, but the residual is something that we've got to keep a close eye on. So levels of depression are going up, levels of suicide are going up. But honestly, a lot of this was going up even before the pandemic, but the pandemic accelerated. And so we're living in a different society right now. I mean, literally, you have people who try to overthrow the government, and not respect an election and essentially end democracy in the midst of a pandemic. So this fallout is heavy, but also we're looking at the issue of what has it done to children, adolescents, and young adults? Because that's a formidable time in your life where you're growing and developing, And then imagine for kids, so as my daughter told me, and it's her birthday today to give her a shout out. Dad, I went to spring break and my whole world and everything I knew changed. So imagine in a 16-year-old's mind, 16, 17-year-old's mind, school was something that you do. And all of a sudden, school was something that you did not have anymore. Friends that you grew up with, all right? Since elementary school, pre-K, people that you've gone to school with, all of these people disappeared, right? So that, and then the uncertainty of the entire world, are we going to die? The witnessing of your parents' fear, or people getting sick or even dying inside your own family and home. So this fallout we're starting to see, and then you look at developmental issues when it comes to college age kids. So much of my identity is based upon who people knew me in college. All right. So, I call it, they say that you only live once. I can tell you, I lived a lot. I'm a lot of different people in a lot of different places.
Yeah.
Right. All right. So I'm Dr. Higgins some places, but in college, late high school, college, I was known as Nap. That was a different dude. All right. Sometimes it'll fall out on me, but that was a different character in my life between the ages of 15 and 25 versus me at 50. But that developmental stage of identification. So me, Alpha, I'm the ace on the fall 92 line at Prairie View. I was known for that. I was known for being a smart guy in biology. Imagine when those things are taken away and that an identity development does not occur. And a lot of people have now, when you're looking at this age group, going into 22, 25 without those social development skills. And it's sad, but you can see it as an older, I'm not old, but I'm getting there. I'm no longer considered to be young, not unless you're at least 20 years older than me. But I can see it in people who are on the job in the workplace who are having communication skills of how to navigate or network with individuals. And it's really thrown a lot of people off. So I think there's a ripple effect that is going on within our society because of COVID and because of the further pressures. Capitalism and this level of greed. I should have, in order for me to win in life, I should have as much as possible, and everyone else have the least amount as possible. So we're seeing the cost of inflation go up, the cost of goods go up, the cost of gas go up. You walk back into hotel rooms and plane flights and all these different things. Those pressures are building up in this current society that we're in. And honestly, I do not see an end to it. This summer. So, it's 90-some degrees outside. These are abnormal days.
Yeah. Let me say, if you're just tuning in, you're listening to Real World, Real Talk. I'm your host, Dr. DZ Cofield. Our guest today in the virtual studio, Dr. Napoleon Higgins, and my compadre, attorney Brandon Cofield. We'll be back in just a moment to further discuss not just identifying the kind of depression you have, but how do you move to a place of solution, a place of good mental health and mental wellness. We'll be back in just a moment.
Rooted and Grounded changed my life. From way back in the day, almost 15 years ago, when I was diagnosed with lupus, I noticed a pattern. I was always feeling stressed and overwhelmed because I wanted to achieve. I wanted to be the best. I wanted to do something and be purposeful. And I felt like I really lost sight of what God wanted for me and who God even is. And I had so many questions. I felt helpless, and beyond the actual physical pain of lupus, I felt like I needed some answers and some purpose in my life. Because there was this moment in my life where I felt distant from God's people, I felt distant from God, I felt distant from my church family. And then my mother married the senior pastor. And I started feeling a little anxious about, now I'm in this first family. What are people going to expect me to do? I need to be perfect. And I started feeling stressed and worried. And then there was this rooted and grounded offering. I was like, well, I get to ask questions and I get to read more and I get to study and I get to learn. And that was so exciting for me because I felt so much in the past like I couldn't ask questions. I just had to believe what other people said because they said that this is what you're supposed to believe. And so going through the material and the rooted and grounded and having questions, having pages and pages of questions that I got to ask and not feeling like judgment, really having a community of people that I didn't know before. And so I got to meet new people who were ready to connect. And I feel supported. And now I see them, around the city or in the church. And it's like, hey, I remember we got to connect and we got to really get deep. And I got to share vulnerably without being afraid that they were gonna, be untrustworthy with the information. And so if you're thinking about joining us, I invite you because people like you are the people that are going to change the lives of the people who know you, who trust you, who look up to you, the people you don't even know that look up to you. And that's something that I really take away. When people see me and hear me talk about what I've learned and how I've come through and how now I feel loved and supported and I have this purpose that's still unfolding and this vision that is drawing me closer to God. That's the exciting part about going through this program. So I invite you to come. I look forward to seeing you there, and you got this. Let's do it.
Welcome back to Real World, Real Talk. I'm your host, Dr. DZ Cofield, and you're listening to your member-supported public radio station. I appreciate so much the privilege of your time. Thank you for being with us as we delve into Depression Awareness Month. So many people are walking around with depression, and as Dr. Higgins was talking, I was thinking about, if everybody was walking around with a broke leg, people would tell them, hey, man, you got to go to the hospital. You need to get that looked at. You need to get a cast put on it. You need to get that leg set so it can begin to heal. But when we are walking around with a broke spirit or a broke mind, we're troubled. Sometimes we don't see it. And when we see it, we don't know what to say about it. That's what we're talking about today. Dr. Higgins, let's talk a little bit about the different kinds of depression that are out there, because a lot of times I'll use anger for an example. Somebody told me they weren't angry. And I said, well, no, you seem angry. And they said, no, because if I was angry, I would be cussing. I would be throwing things. And they were going to an extreme definition of a display of anger, even though they had internalized that anger. For somebody who may be looking at the extreme of depression, identify some of the different kinds of depressions and some of the things we need to look at, not just for other people, but also, if possible, to identify when we're going through some things and we need to detach and come apart before we come apart.
Very, very interesting question. And, we've talked a lot about clinical major depressive disorder, but within that, there are different, levels of depression. And a lot of people can be functionally depressed. So the point is, I can get up, I dress myself, I get myself ready for the world, I put my mask on and I engage. But the issue is that the question becomes, how long can I hold that mask up before it starts to fall out in poor decision making? One thing that I found especially with men, being sad and depressed is not an acceptable, sadly, mood to be in or accepted by people around you. But anger in men seems to be more acceptable. So far as irritability, anger, being overly hostile, overly aggressive, can definitely be damaging. And then a lot of our women who have to keep pushing forward, you just push through it and push past it. But the problem is that it affects your decision making. And it affects your ability to move forward to get that next thing done in your life, in your career, and for your family. Because even though the impairment is not outwardly seen, the impairment could definitely be inwardly seen, where you have to pay attention to your emotions so that you can move to that next step. Also, I would say with depression, you have major depressive disorder. You also have dysthymia, that chronic low mood that's impairing and affecting. But see, people say that doesn't affect me. Well, there's an option for a position on the job. All right. And it's a higher pay. Maybe it's, more responsibilities. But within that dysthymia is people are picking up on some irritability or some disengagement. And so you can't be manager and be disengaged, seem to be disinterested, seeming to be irritable and not engaging other people. And people won't even notice that they're doing it or why they can't move forward. But it may be that you're carrying this extra weight, this extra load that needs to be dealt with. Multiple ways of doing that. All right. And being a psychiatrist, honestly, I'm probably the last step for everyone. And there are multiple things that can work, in the meantime. But also, I want to cover a little bit of some other things to talk about when it comes to even clinical depression. That's something called bipolar depression, which is where people have these highs, where they become overly happy. They start doing a lot. They can even be a high performer and then go through these crashes of very deep lows. There's issues of bereavement, the loss of a family member, of loss of someone, or honestly, as I talked about with the kids earlier, they all lost school and lost something that was very familiar to them. So that could be impairing. And then you have the issue of postpartum depression, where people can have depression after a loss. After delivering a baby or being pregnant. So there are multiple types and multiple forms of depression that individuals can have that we need to make sure that we address in the appropriate ways.
Brandon, you had a question?
Yeah, one of the things that I've been thinking about and uh, that's affected a couple of my friends. So I'd be curious your thoughts and what you've seen, generally speaking, with work from home. I mean, I have some friends that are at larger law firms that have never had to go into the office yet, and some of the things that they don't love. Obviously, you still have like the work hours, but the lack of camaraderie, the lack of kind of like building the different rapport. I have some friends that now it's interesting. Ones that haven't been working from home this whole time are still looking for that. Yeah, I mean that mythical, fantastic work from home, roll out of bed job. And then you have some that have been pretty much predominantly work from home that are looking to change jobs into a place that maybe has 1 or 2 days in office or like flexible. So I was curious what you've seen that impact on work from home, kind of that isolation that you get, which some people like, but that impact on depression.
Well, it really depends on the individual. And it also depends upon how many things or what kind of things they have going on outside of work as well. So understanding that isolation in itself can be a form of torture. So essentially, you cannot leave say a prisoner in a cell and then not be allowed to come out because it will be detrimental to their health. Then, physical health, but definitely their mental health. So we all require these connections. And now there are some who thrive in an environment by themselves, and there are others who thrive in an environment, around other people. So I would say it's up to the individual to figure out what is best for them. And sometimes you may need to change jobs or at least ask for a different way in doing the same job so that you have those particular, options. For your introvert or your person who has social anxiety, they love working from home. I've even found some people who have ADHD who love working from home because they can focus more on their job versus all the side conversations going on around them. But that really depends upon the temperament of the individual, going into it. Me, I'm pretty much, I would say definitely more so of an extrovert most of the time. But oddly enough, because before the pandemic, I traveled a lot. I found it to be a relief to stay at home, and I was, then next thing you know, I found myself saying, well, I didn't see anybody all day today. What if I can go tomorrow and not see anybody? How about that? Sounds good to me, so I can be alone. But at a certain point, obviously that gets to a lot of people. And for some, being alone in the home is super, super stressful. They need those connections. They need those people around them. And so I would say having to taking a deep look in yourself and know what's working, what's not. And most employers, if you say you want to come in, they have a place for you to sit.
Right.
Yeah, most will say, "Hey, come on in," or the harder thing is to push to go home more so than it is to actually go into a building. But now that we have remote work, it's a new world. People have jobs where they never met the people. They've done 100% of the work for 2 or 3 years and have never pressed the hand flesh of a single individual in their company. So this is a very brand new world. And what is that doing to the mind? We're still trying to figure all of that out.
Yeah. Doc, let me rapid fire you on a couple of things when people are looking for symptoms. Um, Sometimes it's not black or white, sometimes it's not either or, sometimes it's both and. But let me just ask you a couple of really quick questions around depression. One, how might depression affect my appetite and my weight?
Wow. The thing is that that's a very common symptom of depression, weight loss or weight gain. And some of that is based on, not wanting to eat. Also, those who eat well too much. So you can see these major, major shifts in weight one way or the other. And realizing that stress, all right. So stress causes an increased amount of cortisol in the body to be released. So your adrenal glands are basically what, say if somebody, say somebody gets into a wreck, your adrenaline goes up because your body is trying to respond to whatever is going on. Well, the adrenal glands release adrenaline. The problem with chronic stress or issues with depression is that the adrenal glands are continually releasing. All right. And when adrenal glands release more, it starts to affect the increased amount of insulin being released into the body.
Well,
And so insulin then affects glucose. All right. Because high insulin states can cause your glucose levels to drop, which then causes you to eat more food. But also high adrenaline states can cause you not to want to eat. So essentially, if somebody's chasing you down the street, all right, and somebody offers you your favorite steak, I can guarantee you, if you're running for your life, in your mind, my point is not to eat steak right now. All right. So the thing is that I would say your food, your desire to eat, and all that is directly tied into your mental health and food decisions. When you're stressed, if somebody offers you, all right, well, when you're severely stressed and things are not going well, and somebody offers you a cut up tomato, all right, versus a thing of tater tots and French fries, when you're stressed out, your brain is telling you to eat things that will keep you safe. So salt, because it's very, I go on, I don't want to go too far so far as get off topic, but whenever you're stressed, your brain tells you to consume salt. It tells you to consume sugar, which is carbohydrates, and it's going to tell you to consume fat because you're now in survival mode. All right. So you want things that are high in calories, high in salt, in your mind, in the primitive mind, is that you may run out of water. So things that if you have high salt in you retain water. High sugar is high caloric. All right. So it gives you more energy, and high fat gives you high storage. So essentially, if you're looking at a bag of Cheetos versus a bag of Brussels sprout, a bushel of Brussels sprouts, your brain is Cheetos, 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 because it's trying to go for salt, sugar, and fat, and it's trying to go after safety. And I think that is a lot of the issues that we see where people have difficulty controlling their diet or even stress within the Black community, along with other things in the food and the types of foods that are available to the finances, and then also due to social structures. It's not by accident that Old Cullen, you have so many different fried chicken places with fried chicken deals. But when you're stressed out, it's harder to make good decisions about your appetite because you're in that survival mode, and that, and then that throws off everything. So there's a metabolic change that comes with stress. And then there's also the decision-making changes that come with that stress and depression that starts to affect you.
All right. How can depression affect my sleep? Is it true that if I'm depressed, I may oversleep? But there are also some who don't sleep at all because of insomnia. So how can depression affect my sleep?
All right. Same thing. Cortisol, stress, adrenaline is running. So essentially, you want to go to sleep. It's time to shut it down, but your brain is on overload trying to figure out, or you're ruminating about the same problem going over and over, thinking about all the different stresses, and your brain is trying to figure it out. So essentially, when it throws off the metabolics, throws off the mind, you're having a lot of stress, you're having a lot of thinking, you're having a lot of thoughts. It's a lot more difficult to go into sleep when you're having those changes going on in your body.
All right. Can depression cause me physical pain?
Depression, I would say, normally always causes physical pain. You feel
Oh,
depressed. You feel depressed. When nobody thinks depressed, you feel it. All right. And oddly enough, these chemicals in your mind, oddly enough, there are more chemicals in your gut than is actually in your mind. What you eat directly impacts how your mood feels. So essentially, I'm trying to think of my favorite food. You say French fries, of which I don't eat all. No, ice cream. I love ice cream. All right. So if I eat ice cream right now and I make myself a Coke float, I can guarantee you I'm going to feel better. Or what do we do after every funeral? There's the repast.
no.
I can guarantee you the person with the styrofoam plate with 2 pieces of chicken, the green beans on this side, the mashed potatoes or the potato salad on that side with the cake inside the little baggie. If they're eating, I can guarantee you they're not crying. They can miss grandma as much as they want to. But whenever we have stress or we're feeling overwhelmed, what is the first thing people do? Offer us a glass of water. Let me let you eat something, because eating makes you feel good. All right. But the other side of that is that eating also can cause your mood to go other directions. So far as a high fat meal or a high carb meal will cause you to have the itis. Well, imagine if you already feel depressed, you're not feeling well, somebody puts a plate of food in front of you, and that gives you a buzz, it gives you increased dopamine, but but when that blood sugar goes up, insulin goes up to get that sugar out of the blood. And when insulin goes up too high, it will cause the blood sugar to crash.
Mm.
Now you're having the itis. So you were depressed, you got the buzz, and now you went through the crash. But in order to get out of the crash, you got to go get high again. So therefore, you got to eat more foods that are going to give you the buzz, and then you're crashing, and you're buzzing, and you're crashing, and the weight is coming on, it's coming on, it's coming on.
Jeez.
Let me ask, um, how does how do health conditions affect our symptoms of depression, and how does depression affect our health conditions? Like, in other words, can depression make our health conditions that we may already be struggling with, I don't know, cancer, thyroid problems, headaches, migraines, can depression make our physical conditions, health conditions worse? And can our physical health conditions make our depression worse?
I would say definitely both. So
Mm.
when it comes to physical conditions, there are physical conditions that are clearly known to cause depression. All right. So a lot of different cancers will give off chemicals into the body that will cause you to feel depressed. And then also, depression worsens every physical condition that you have. So if you have depression and any other health condition, you have a poorer outcome if you actually have clinical symptoms of depression. So if you want to, as they say, you got to take the bull by the horns if you want to control the bull. And so if there's something impacting your mind or your brain, it impacts the rest of your body. So whatever helps the body, any diet that you do, anything that helps your body helps your brain. So eating healthy, exercising, daylight, keeping your weight down, keeping that blood sugar down, keeping your cholesterol numbers down, keeping your blood pressure down. Whatever that does to the body helps the brain. But also the brain, the better it's functioning, the more improves the body. Oddly enough, and we never quite figured this out, but one thing that we found is with COVID, There were a lot of studies that showed that antidepressants seem to help people have better outcomes with COVID.
Hmm.
Antidepressants tend to help people have a better outcome of heart disease.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Antidepressants seem to show a better outcome with cancer. So there's a level of, we think about them as medications that affect the mind, but also there's a clearly shown that there's an anti-inflammatory effect that the medications can cause as well. So the body and the brain are connected. It's not two different units. We teach people about their bodies. We don't teach them about their brains. But if it's the direction of the camera. My head is not quite as big as it looks on the thing. But some would argue differently who actually know me and face to face. But the fact is that it's one big connected unit. You cannot have one without the other. And so that's why it's important to make sure that anytime you're seeing a primary care doctor, they're going to screen you for a depression in some shape or form, because it changes the outcome of everything if there's a mental health condition that is going on that is not being addressed. Mental stress impacts everything, and everything can cause mental stress.
Man, so one question I have for you, and obviously you're very well versed in this space. And so for some, let's say, some listeners that are curious about going into this field, that are curious to just kind of, I guess, one, like, how long have you been in this practice area? And then two, has it been, so obviously you came into this field with some sort of idea of what you wanted to do. How has it changed over time? And I mean, what's something you're excited about? Some changes coming.
I would say, my mother says that if the family would have had heart issues, I would have become a cardiologist. So, God rest his soul, but so much of that is true that, mental illness is something that I've been able to recognize in several family members. And it's something not to run from. And so I was drawn to it. So my other colleagues, one went to medical school, some wanted to do internal, some wanted to do surgery, some wanted to do pediatrics. But I love the idea of mental health. And there's several ways to engage. There are trainings that the lay individual can do to understand more about mental health. I think we need to put it in schools to make it just a regular part of life and understanding how the body and the brain works. But, so there's the lay individual, which there are trainings done by Mental Health America. You don't just put in mentalhealthamerica.com or .org, or just do a search on Google. And then there are professionals, who are, people went to college who are psychologists, who work so often with CPS and those type of groups. And then you have those who have a master's and a license, so far as your licensed therapist. There are pastoral counselors. Some pastoral work has actual licensing with it as well. And then, of course, you have people like myself who are MDs, who I am a medical doctor. I'm a medical physician who specializes in mental health care. So, I'm a medical doc. I did all the training as medical doctors do, but my specialty is mental health. And then child and adolescent mental health is my subspecialty within my specialty. And then, of course, you have your PhDs who do studies and, who do therapy, a lot of the therapy. But when it comes to IQ tests and behavioral assessments, they do a lot of that type of work. But there's so many ways, social work, they do a lot of the therapy as well. So there's so many ways in which they engage in mental health care. Mental health is so big, but sadly, we don't talk about it a lot in the Black community. It's of specialties of medicine. Psychiatry is the largest specialty of all medicine. So there are more psychiatrists than there are OBGYNs.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
But nobody talks about going to see the psychiatrist. Women will say, I'm going to see the OBGYN. But
Yeah.
we see more patients than OBGYN does. So it's a secret medical field, but it's like the social medical part of healthcare that is engaged by multiple people through multiple different ways.
Wow.
Yeah, it's interesting. Because part of me wants to say, like, people don't know what they don't know, but then I also don't want to give a cop out, because clearly it's not like there's just a whole gang of psychiatrists that are just sitting there with nothing to do, right? So it's almost as if it's a resource that's used, but not acknowledged publicly as it probably should be. But to that end, I'm curious about some different, like, lifestyle changes. So let's just say I'm dealing somewhere along the spectrum of depression, somewhere maybe not quite fully diagnosed as like clinical depression, what are some things that I can do to try to help uh, provide a little bit of like, stability, a solid foundation for my daily exercise? I mean, recently we had someone on that spoke about kind of yoga and like the impact of like meditation. We're trying to think of some other things that people can do. Maybe there's those individuals that are like, I'm too tired to be depressed. I can't quite get all the way to the point of getting see a psychiatrist. How can I help navigate these things as I'm trying to live life?
Definitely. And I would say that we have to pay attention to our mental health. There are a lot of things that go into your mental health, which is, one that I need to work on myself is adequate sleep. There's always something popping, something going on, some deadline coming up. But we've got to make sure we're getting adequate sleep. That 8 hour, I tell it's like your cell phone. Sometimes your cell phone locks up and it needs to be turned off to turn back on, or like your laptop or computer. The brain requires a 7 to 9 hour reboot in the cycle every day. The only thing that does not reboot correctly are humans. All right. The dog goes to sleep unless the dog stays with a human. The cat goes to sleep unless they're living in a house with a human. Right. But we're the only ones who push the clock one way or the other, which can throw off our bodies and our biorhythms. You got good family and friends matter. And getting negative people out of your life, negative things out your life. Facebook, social media is not always positive. Some of your family or some of your friends are not always positive. So the thing is that good family and friends, good food, good diet, all right? Good communion with good people. Physical activity, exercising helps. Exercising in the sun helps even more. Exercising in the sun with good friends playing a game and having a good meal afterwards is a beautiful thing, right? So all of those things help to improve your mental health. Having direction, having something that you love, something that you enjoy, something that you can look forward to matters. And honestly, prayer and meditation matters. Prayer is the request, but too often we pray, but we don't meditate. Meditation is the answer to the prayer or the direction to go in. Or in meditation, you can bend time. You can see things happen years in advance, and you can make those things happen in your mind, and you meditate and to figure out how it works. I tell people prayer without meditation is like sitting on Santa Claus's lap. This is what I want. Boom, 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 boom. I want this, I want that, I want this, I want that. Thank you very much. And this is my list. So in case you couldn't remember it all. Versus meditation is, how do I attain those things? What are the steps that I need to take even right now to prepare for the future? So I try to meditate at least on a short, brief, quick, twice a day.
Oh, wow.
In the morning to get my head right on how I want the day to go. And at night, trying to run the entire day through of what it should be. Now, of course, things are going to happen. And you don't have to meditate for 40 days and 40 nights. All right. You can meditate for 4 minutes. Just try to go over some things to prepare yourself, to prepare your mind, to prepare it for the day or the tomorrow or for the future. That's why when you see people, I know with Joe Burrows, when he won the NCAA football championship, he was sitting down chilling, right? Chilling. He wasn't even celebrating. He was chilling. Why? He had seen himself win the NCAA title and LSU for at least 18 years of his life, that he knew that he was going to do that. Now, does it always work out? No, it worked out for him, but he had already seen the vision, but that comes through meditation. So every throw, every pass that I learn how to do, every skill that I learn, I'm working towards a particular goal. And I think too often we're haphazard in life and we're not meditating about that next step. So we need to pray the request, but that meditation is key to improving your mental health.
Dr. Higgins, thank you so much for being with us on today, man. We're out of time, and I know our guests, I know our listeners are probably like, oh my God, keep going, keep going. But we really appreciate you, Dr. Napoleon Higgins, just a tremendous, tremendous brother and tremendous gift to our community. He is a medical doctor, received his degree from Missionary Medical College in Nashville, Tennessee, and has completed his residency in adult psychiatry and his fellowship in child and adolescent psychiatry at the University of Texas Medical Branch at Galveston. And he is the executive director of the Black Psychiatrists of America and CEO of Global Health Psychiatry, president of the Black Psychiatrists of Greater Houston, and just a great brother. He's an author. Man, we appreciate you being with us on today on Real World, Real Talk. The late Vernon John said, if you see a good fight, get in it. I always add, if you don't see a good fight, start one. And there's no better fight to start than the fight for your own mental health and being in a good mental space. Here's one of the things that I've learned. Other people will not make your priority their priority, especially when they have other priorities. So you're going to have to take responsibility for your own mental well-being and your own mental health. And if somebody says to you, hey, man, you doing okay? If you can't step back and take an objective look at your own life, get somebody you trust to take an objective look at your life, and somebody who will be honest with you and tell you the truth, because that person is a real friend, and that person can walk you through what you're dealing with to help you get to the other side of health, of healing, and of wholeness. This is Dr. DZ Cofield for Real World, Real Talk signing off. Thank you for being with us. We look forward to seeing you next week, same place, same time. God bless.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Real World, Real Talk. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast to be notified of new episodes every week. Follow us via social media using the @RWRTDZ username on all platforms: YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. To submit any comments, questions, sponsor opportunities, or future show suggestions, visit us online at rwrtdz.com or via email at info@rwrtdz.com. Thank you for listening, and we hope you've been inspired to be the change you want to see in the world today. Until next time, be real, keep it real, and stay real.